Hello everyone and welcome back. If you don't know me, my name is Carolina and I'm a survivor of a high control mental organization. I've also survived 2 divorces within a period of less than 10 years. And not to mention, I raised my daughter completely alone for the past 5 years. And in this video, I want to share with you how I was able to overcome my pain. And not only that, but utilize that pain to fuel my desired future. I hope that this video inspires you to do the same, to take your life to the next level, and use the pain that you've lived in the past to take your life to the next level in today and in the future. And in this video, I'm going to show you just how you can do that. And before we continue, I was going to do a very well organized and put together video with high production and B-rolls, and then I decided, nah, I want to sit down and talk to you like this, because quite frankly, it's like talking to a friend. When you do the other production, it's more like a film. You don't connect that well. Either way, let's talk a little bit about my background. I'm sure if you've been around and you subscribed a couple years ago, or more like 10 years ago, it was because I released a video in which I explained my background, and I don't want to touch too much into it, but I was a Jehovah's Witness, and now I am an ex-Jehovah's Witness. The reason I'm bringing it up is because as much as I wanted to run away from that memory, it was my past, and it was horrible, but at the same time it built me and I used it. At the age of 24, I had an identity crisis because I was shunned and I lost my friends and family completely. I really had nothing. I had no desire for life. I had no identity. I was completely lost with self-destructive thoughts and in a very dark moment in my life, and I didn't even consider life to be worth it anymore at that point. For me, it was more like I'm alive because I'm breathing, but do I care to be alive? No. And when I say I had a crisis identity, I mean, like, really, I did not know myself at all. I didn't know what I liked, what I didn't like, what I would accept, what my values were. Like, everything was completely shattered. A lot of people don't go through these major traumas, but this was mine. And on top of that, I had just fled an abusive marriage. That marriage alone too was traumatic because the person was somebody who mentally and emotionally abused me for years. That was my starting point, right? And then I went from that to another marriage that was as abusive, as controlling, and even worse, it brought, lies and cheating as well. And I was now abused by 2 different individuals, and I was shunned by my family, completely lost in a new world. I had no idea how to navigate, and anyone in my point of view would be a complete victim. And I felt that both marriages, what they tried to do was put me in a very low, worthless position where I felt unlovable and afraid to leave those marriages and even to love again. So that's my background. That's where I'm coming from. And from that pain, from those dark moments that were, when I say dark, I mean really dark, I had to rebuild myself. And this is where it comes the title of this video, and where it comes the information of using your past to fuel your future. Because from that pain that I carried, I used it all to rebuild myself. And it all started with my mindset. It started with the perspective of how I viewed things. So you see, in life you have 2 options. You either are a victim of your life or you are the hero of it. And I find that a lot of people love and dwell on the mentality of a victim. Oh, these people did this and they said this to me, and why this keeps happening to me, and oh, poor me, and I'm sorry about me, and people just come and use me, and you stay in this narrative that is so negative, so toxic, so victimized. And you continue to dwell on it. I personally said to myself, I don't want that role. That role is not for me. Yes, I've been through a lot of things, but shifting my mentality from victim to hero completely did a 360 in my life. I accepted the mistakes that I had made because I took accountability and I took responsibility for the mistakes I had made. It wasn't like somebody put a gun to my head to marry this person, right? So it was also part of my problem. Yes, the religion was very, very controlling and I was very naive. However, I could look at it in two different ways and say, oh my God, I lost everything, now I'm lost. Or I have a rebirth. I have the option to reconstruct my life and recreate it the way I want it, not being told by anybody, either by a husband or by a religion, to do it their way. I accept the mistakes that I was part of. I saw it as a, hey, this is living, this is life, and this is lessons that I have to go through, and that at that moment I had no understanding, but now I see that it had a purpose and that I needed to go through. And using those lessons for later in life and being wise to learn from that, to not make those mistakes again. You see, the problem is that when we go through life, we don't understand that life is like a school. I always say life is a school. And when you keep going through the same thing over and over, it's really because you did not graduate from that lesson of life. To make it simple to understand is, let's say you're in a toxic or a very abusive relationship, and you somehow find a way to flee the relationship and move on, and then what happens? You end up in another relationship with another individual who's similar to the one you had before. And you say, why do I keep staying in this cycle? Over and over, you keep making the same mistake. It's because you didn't learn your lesson. See, the lesson comes from wisdom. When you go through something in life that affected you deeply, that carried pain and resentment and anger perhaps, you can use that as a tool, as a knowledge for the next time that you have to make a similar decision. For example, the abusive relationship. If a person takes their time to heal, if a person takes their time to take a moment, take back some space and reflect whether this person or this individual is a good partner for you. Does he carry the same traits that the previous one had or not? Then you're utilizing the wisdom from the previous pain, because now you don't want to go through the same thing over and over. And when you are wise enough to utilize that knowledge, you won't fall in the same mistakes. And that is officially when you can move on to the next level of your life and graduate from the current one. So in my case, I felt like I wasn't graduating yet because I went from one bad relationship to another one, and ultimately marrying the second person that was not good for me. But in the second one, I had to take back some time and realize this keeps happening to me because I have not learned my lesson. I have not reflected on the wrong mistakes I've done and how I'm going to change, how I'm not going to do it again. When I was in that perspective and I said, let me consider the mistakes I'm making and why I'm making them, and really took time to reflect, that's when you start to viewing your past with purpose. You no longer dwell on the negative, but you're more taking out the positive or the important pieces of that experience or the situation to take yourself currently to the next level. In my situation, it was very drastic. I didn't use it only for relationships, I also used it for friendships. And I said, I'm not going to allow anyone to just walk in my life and be my friend just because they want to. Do they deserve to be part of my circle of friends? What can they give me and what can I give them in return? And have friends that have morals and values that are similar to me. So I became a lot wiser, and I noticed that when I did that, my circle of friends got very small because I officially removed people that were not meant to be in my life, and that we were no longer at the same level. Same thing happened with relationships. There were relationships that just had to go. I felt like we no longer fit because I had graduated from that part of my life. Right now, I can look back at everything that I went through and say, yes, I did survive, but I conquered my life, and I'm continuing to conquer different parts of my life now. I conquered my emotional part, I conquered the fears I had, but now I'm conquering the business side of my life. And I think life is about that. It's about going back in retrospective and looking at all the bad things that you've gone through and kind of giving you a pep talk and saying, hey, wow, how far and how long I've come through. With that in mind, how can you do this to yourself, to your life? The first thing I'm going to tell you is, I'm sure you can resonate with this, is do not become the victim of your life. Let me say that again. Do not become the victim of your life. That means do not dwell on your pain. Do not dwell on your past. Do not tell yourself, I wish I could have done this, or I wish I would have done that, or only if this would have happened, my life would have been different. There is no point in doing that. You're only going to cause yourself pain, resentment, anger to yourself and to other people around that were involved in that time frame. And there's no point in doing that. Instead, become the hero of your life. How do you do that? You go into retrospective of what happened, but in this time you go very objectively. And you tell yourself, what was the purpose of me going through that? What did I have to learn from that situation? And how have I used that knowledge in my current life? For example, in my case, when my whole life was shattered, I went through it a good 2 years being lost. But afterwards, I kind of woke up and said, wait a minute, why am I wasting time and losing time not knowing which direction I want to go to? What was the purpose of me leaving behind that organization and starting completely fresh? And I felt like at that point, it was a rebirth of my identity, because now I had given myself a second chance to rediscover me. A lot of people really don't have that chance too many times in their lives, where they're like, blank page, start over. But I did. And if you're in that situation where you feel like you're in a rut, or you're just stuck in your past and you don't let it go, you might have to remove yourself from a certain situation where you can think objectively. And in that moment, ask yourself, how can I reconstruct or remake my identity? How can I make myself a better person? How can I use the pain I carry to get to the next level in my life and become this ball of strength that is unbreakable and that is resilient? When you answer these questions, that's when you can start getting objective answers in regards to the pain that you're carrying from your past. There is always a reason or a purpose for what you're going through. I don't care how many people say, no, it's just coincidence. No, nothing is coincidence in this life. You're going through something again and again and again for a reason. I always say, if you go it multiple times, it's because you really didn't learn your lesson. But there may be other hidden gems that you will find if you reflect on your past. Then also use that to rebuild you. How many times do you sit down and give yourself that pep talk of, damn, like how far I've come in my life, what I've been through, and where I'm standing right now, how I've grown as a human, as a person, as a woman, or as a man since this happened. I strongly believe that the more reflection you do in your life and the things that you've been through will open up doors to understandings might not do on a daily basis. I find that a lot of people unfortunately don't do that. They do not reflect on their past experiences. They do not reflect on their pain. So they get stuck and they just continue a pattern. In your case, do the opposite. Don't stay in the pattern. Remove yourself from the situation if you're currently going through it. If it's something that it's already in the past, go back to it with an objective of finding purpose. After that, take what's important, move on. And one of the other things that I think it was crucial in my life was reading. So I dedicated a lot of time to self-development, self-healing. I read a lot of spiritual books that helped me at the time and understand my different forms of living within the physical form, and as well as creating a new identity. But in life, you just keep going on stages, right? So when you graduate from one, you just got to go on to the next one. So when I graduated from the pain, the healing, the anger, the resentment, and now I no longer had anything, now it was, okay, now what you're going to put in. What are you going to grow from? And that's when the self-help books helped me view my life differently, because a lot of it was from life coaches, from business coaches, from spiritual gurus, and just people that had experiences that were similar to me. And what that did was kind of reinvent my wheel per se. And I said, okay, so the old Carolina was shy, was fearful, would not speak up, would not have boundaries, would let people do whatever they wanted with her. How is the new Carolina gonna be? And how am I gonna reinvent myself to be a lot higher value than I was before? And not for anybody else, but for me. So what I did was journaling. Not only I journal during the dark moments, but I journal also in the good ones. And in the good ones, I would be very objective on what I was writing. And I would tell myself, okay, with the new Carolina, this is what we're going to accomplish. This is the goal. This is where I want to see myself. And I've been able to accomplish a lot since I've had this mindset. Like I said, mindset is all. When you have the right mindset, you can achieve far more than not having a good, educated and strong mindset. Because when you don't have that mindset, you just kind of live, you're alive. But with a purposeful mind, can go so far because you're objectively seeing things. So when I tell you that you can conquer your pain, you can move on from the victim role into the hero goal. You can look retrospectively to your past with the purpose of becoming a better you now. You can definitely do it, and there are steps to doing that. I just gave you a few gems today. But if you're interested in conversations like this, please leave them down below in the comments. As a matter of fact, I am interested in talking about things that I personally didn't want to talk about. So there are parts of my life that, yes, I've conquered, but I've kind of left them behind, and I was like, they don't need to be shared or talked about. However, I find that they are so crucial in my development and in my growth that I would love to share them with you. And I don't know, maybe there is somebody out there who will resonate with it and who will help them. And if I can help anybody, especially women that are battered or have lived through domestic violence or are currently in domestic violence or just not happy with their lives and where they're at, they want to improve, they want to create their own businesses, their own freedom, they want to be their own boss of their lives, literally. I would love to talk to you about it, because that's basically what my life was about and what it is now. And I've conquered so much that I feel like I'm at a point where I am ready to share even the not so good parts of it, because now they have the purpose of helping you. So if you are interested, just let me know in the comments below. How have you been able to manage your pain? And if you like the information, subscribe to the channel just so you don't miss any more videos. And the other part is, did you like this format more than the other video, or do you prefer the other video with the B-rolls? I always will count your opinion, because you're watching, why not, right? I want to know if you like it or not. So just leave those down below. I would greatly appreciate it if you could do that for me. And I will see you next time.